Quiet on the set. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy. Welcome to Mondays with Myrt, where we talk about anything and everything that's crossed our genea-desks in the last 2 weeks since last we met. Wow, did we have a very interesting green room this morning. Frank, if you'd bring everyone up, let Melinda work the YouTube side, and Sherry's over there on the YouTube side. And I'd like to just do a little clarification before we talk. And that is, okay, that is, welcome to those of you who are just watching this YouTube video embedded over on Substack in a post that I made in Dear Myrtle's Village Square. We tried very hard working with Barbara at Project Kin to see about streaming live not only to YouTube but also to Substack. It failed. It's possible to do it, but here's why it failed in old Myrt's eyes. And that is the comments that are made over in Substack cannot be pulled over like we can do here in the streaming technology that we use, which happens to be StreamYard. Conversation from those of you who are viewing is so important to old Myrt. Cousin Russ and I built this whole concept of conversation versus lecture. Well, I'm sure other people invented it, but we kind of, pushed for it in our webinars. And that's why to be able to fully participate during a live Mondays with Myrt or book club, you want to view it and comment over on the YouTube side. Now, it makes sense for me to post a mention of Mondays with Myrt or book club over in Substack because that invites people to participate. But if you're watching it solely on the Substack side, it's hard to get all these terms correct. Any comments you make there will only come to my attention long after I've recovered from being nice for 90 minutes straight, which you all know is sometimes a bit hard for this old Myrt. All right, what are we doing today on Mondays with Myrt? Number one, we will talk about book club. Yes, we are going to be doing the StreamYard giveaway tool. And what I will be giving away is this. It's going to be the book that we will be studying starting next week, Mastering Genealogical Documentation. Looks a lot like the book we've worked on for 8 weeks. That was Mastering Genealogical Proof. This has to, by the same author, Dr. Thomas W. Jones, and I'll give it away either in the Kindle format or the book format if you don't have it and would like to. So if Randy, who usually does my links, or somebody over there would give you the hashtag that you need to use. Let me show you. There's one entry so far. This is what you need to do. Need to type in hashtag Myrt's Book Club, just like that. And then this little tool that StreamYard gives us aggregates all of your entries. And if you have, if you log into YouTube here with more than one email address, you can enter more than one time. But I digress. Okay. Another thing we're going to do is talk about AI and find out about MyrtleMate. Oh. But I want to talk to my panelists. I miss you guys. I haven't seen you for so long. Frank, did you not want to be up on? There you are. You're up on this. So what you've been doing the last 2 weeks? Let's start. Well, Dan, I know what you've been doing. We'll take you at the end and we'll segue into your most recent post. Hillary, you have a different book club today, but what have you been doing genealogically since last we met?
Well, at lunchtime today, my time, we finished the connectathon, the latest connectathon, and prior to that, and including during the connectathon, I've been adding link backs to Wikitree from Family Search. So I've actually been putting a source in the Family Search pages to the Wikitree profile that I've created, because quite often in the Wikitree one, I might have added things to links to other websites which provide a bit more information. Not everything, I can't access everything on Family Search because I'm not a member of the LDS Church, so I don't get the full access. So what I can access, I can add, but I can also add a bit more, and I can add research notes and all sorts of things on my Wikitree profile. So I will link back so that the two things are linked. I already add links to the Family Search profile onto my Wikitree profiles.
So you're coordinating,
working both ways.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you ever need a document, I'm your person.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I have subscriptions to the websites that I mainly use for my English ones, but sometimes you can't get things. So
I hear you. Okay. So I think that's a great idea. I don't know what happened. I lost my Hillary and I did not move my mouse. All right, let's go back to the panelist view. Okay, so Randy, we're going to be talking about a lot of your AI stuff. What's changed? What have you been doing in the last 2 weeks?
Not much new. Just, the weekly 3 blog posts a day,
Yeah. We can say that you and I have been doing some work with a proposed online collaborative tree. It's not publicly available. So we've been dealing with uploading part of our databases, stuff like that. We just can't tell you the name of it yet because it's not open yet. So we're learning stuff and the coders are learning. So I'm enjoying working with you on that. Ellen, when last we met, we were saying our prayers that you got home safely, because I know when you've got somebody sick in the family, then driving is a little more nerve-wracking than usual, but you got home safely.
Right.
How are you doing? Anything genealogical, or are you busy on the current generations?
Yeah, no, I am. I was working over the weekend on ancestry networks, which I just really have come to realize how powerful this is going to be, or can be. And so I've been playing around with that, as well as the new search ability on photographs within Ancestry as well. So, and
okay,
if I can find somebody that has the same photograph,
that'd be cool. All right, so we did talk about forever in your absence.
Yeah.
And but I haven't done any more on that because in the meantime, I decided to get whatever the flu thing is that's going around. And I haven't even left the house since the passenger only ferry is all that we've got. I haven't gone to any meetings or doctors or shopping.
I actually posted some videos on my YouTube channel on sort of just little clips on how to add how to add some photos, how to make an album. So if you go to my YouTube channel,
put the link. Yeah, put the link in the private chat, and Randy will share it with the group on the YouTube side.
All right.
Sounds like a plan. Okay. And Jill, what have you been doing lately?
Well, it's been a while since I've been in attendance here, so I'm excited to be here. So 3 things I just want to mention. One is that I'm taking the French-Canadian class with David Ouimet and Margaret Fortier, and that's really been very interesting. I've really enjoyed that. I've got my French Canadians back to the 1600s. So it's been very interesting to learn about all the sites. The second thing I've been working on is my book, my next book, which is the book, which is my family. And what I'm doing is I'm taking all of the articles that I've written, some of which are syllabi. I don't want to write the book. I really don't want to. That would just be an enormous task I don't want to do. And so I thought instead by doing a compilation of all the articles. Now, some of the articles are written almost a decade ago, and they look pretty bad. So I'm actually revising them and getting them better. So I'm working on that. And then the third thing is that late next week we leave for Scotland and Ireland. So those are the three things on my agenda right now.
Gee whiz. Tough job, but somebody's got to do that third thing. I love it. Well, that's a very good idea to make a book out of your blog posts.
Well, it's not my blog post because I don't blog about my family at all. But I have written a number of articles for Minnesota, Illinois, National Genealogical Quarterly, for myself, for just a variety of kinds of reasons. Some are syllabi that have been about my family, where it's a primary case study. And I've just put them all together, and I basically found that I've got 3 or 4 articles about every family line I have. And so it'll make still a pretty hefty book. So I think it'll be, it'll be okay.
That's very good.
And it'll save my family a whole lot of heartache, so. And I start each one with a lineage of me going back to that particular ancestor, and so that they see how I'm related. And then we'll go from there.
Okay, that's good. Frank, you did a technical thing in the last 2 weeks because you figured out how to get your iPhone to show up as a screen share here in StreamYard. You're going to have to teach me one of these days, because I could imagine it's the same for my iPad as well. But have you been doing, you have done some stuff genealogically speaking, and that sent me some links to my Paul Froman work. And I want to thank you.
Yes.
What you sent me were 2. We talked about Paul Froman last week, last time we met. And I showed the example of the inventory of his estate. What you sent me links to were what I did not show, which was the index of the wills that said he was on page 46. And then page 46, where his will is beginning, kind of goes over. And that was the actual transcription of his will into the will book. Here in the that time period, our wills weren't entered into the book until the guy dies. Then somebody brings that will, and it is then transcribed by the clerk. So it's really a copy of the original loose leaf will. And I appreciate you doing that because that was thoughtful. You were doing it during the show, I could tell, because immediately you sent it to me, and I appreciate that. That's the kind of fun stuff we get to do to learn about each other's ancestry. I now know that, well, let me just say I love my panelists. Let's just leave it at that. That pretty much sums it up. But go ahead. What have you been doing besides helping old Myrt here?
I'm doing at the moment a research for a friend of mine. And the problem with researching her ancestry is that I have to dig up every single detail individually. So at the moment, I'm on her paternal grandparents. And the problem is her father was not, at least his father claimed that he was not his child.
Oh.
So he is not listed on the as a father on his birth record. So what's the name of that grandparent of my client? I needed actually to call the office 3 times individually to finally have an answer for that.
And was it from a public record or was it from a church record? I mean, you know, like a Burgermeister or government
The civil records.
a civil record. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Which costs me exactly 17 euros per question. Just to answer that.
It does. You know, the cost of doing research is a part of any project. If we were into building model trains or doll houses, or took up knitting, or in my case, quilting or woodworking, you have to buy tools, you have to buy the materials. People sometimes get upset that you actually have to pay for public vital records. And it really isn't that it is hidden behind some paywall. Well, sometimes it is. It's that it takes time for that government entity to pay. You know, you have to pay the employee, and then they have to have the equipment to send it back to you, etc. I hear you.
But
all right.
The funniest thing with that was at my last paper that I ordered, they didn't ask for any documentation or proof that I'm allowed to get that paper, because as far as I see it, they simply thought, "Oh, come on, that guy again."
Yeah, just give it to him and get it over with.
Yeah. They simply
I
gave up.
hear you. Well, here in the United States, each state decides on the availability. Sometimes it's township or independent city like Alexandria, Virginia, or etc. So there's no universal federal law. In fact, there wasn't even a federal law until 1920 that birth, marriage, and death records should be kept. But of course, there were overachievers like in Connecticut and Massachusetts that saw the value of keeping track of birth, marriage, and death. All right, Dan, I'm still holding off on you. Okay. Let's see what people are saying in the comments. Sharon says, good morning. She's just up in Vancouver Island, very close. First time, very excited to have you here. High from 14 degrees centigrade, very cold in rural Alberta. It's raining in, finally not raining. Very interesting, Kathleen. Kathleen is still trying to figure out, that's the question of watch it on YouTube or Substack. So I've answered that question, and I appreciate that. Because I had hoped to be able to stream to both locations equally and have both sets of viewers be able to comment, like I can bring in your comment here. That's only available on YouTube. And our friend Barbara at Project Kin received confirmation from Zach at Substack, the main guys, that they haven't opened that option for commenting. It would have to be, I'd have to have like another computer sitting here or my iPad and just watch those comments and mention them. And I can't do that. It's all I can do to keep up with all this on 3 monitors. So for the best participation by comments during the live, please watch it on the YouTube side. North San Diego, and I do hope you're feeling better. Yeah. Pacific Northwest. Hello to Valerie. Karen's here. Betty Lou is here from the middle of Arkansas. Yeah, I have been, Jill, I've been really excited the last couple of days. We have had more sun than usual lately. It's just delightful.
Well, my rule is, Myrt, that when I leave, it's always the best weather in Seattle. So expect the week after this and the next couple to be much better than it is now, because I'll be gone.
You'll be gone. We appreciate your doing that on behalf of the
It's the least I
citizens
can
in the
do.
greater Seattle area. We appreciate you. Okay, and Karen's done the Myrt's book club so that she can possibly be winning this book. Yeah, Melinda, thanks for sharing the link, and thanks for being there on the YouTube side to continue to share that. Valerie's saying this is an excellent book. If you don't have it, get it. It's a must-have. It's a workbook like Dr. Jones's first book that we handled this year. Again, we will be using our own samples from our own research and spotlighting some little tidbit in a chapter owing to copyright. Anyway. All right, let's see. Sharon's here. She got that in there. Montalia's here. What publisher will you use? That's a good question, and I'm glad you asked that. Jill, who are you planning to have publish it?
I'll use lulu.com. They do the best with photos. They're better. The other alternative, I think, based on actually a fair amount of research, because I taught a class in self-publishing, was the other one is what's it called? Kindle distribution. It's KDP. It's
Yeah.
So it's Kindle Distribution Project, I think, something like that, and that does a real good job if you don't have a lot of pictures. But the resolution is decidedly better over on lulu.com.
Okay.
So I use it exclusively.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Ellen said, I always say my children aren't getting an inheritance. I'll spend it. We need a plaque like that. We could make a mint, Ellen, if you sold that in your store.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And there's Barbara. Hello from Berkeley. Thank you. Yes, she did a lot of experimenting last week. Very cool. And then Melinda shared the link to the book as it is on Amazon.com. That's the book that I'm going to give away. But you must be present to win. All right. Let's do this. I haven't asked Dan because I know what he's going to talk about. I'll have everyone else go to the wings except for Dan. And do you want to bring up your blog post and share your screen, Dan? And while I've got to close these blinds, it's so sunny, I can't handle it. I can't see what I'm doing. So there we go. All right. And as soon as you have shared your screen, I'll pull it up. And then I'm going to step away to close the blinds. Okay. I'm not seeing a screen share.
I just need to find the right window.
Okay, so it's at the bottom of the StreamYard screen where it says,
I just mean which screen it wants me to share here. I just got to find
4,000, yeah.
The right tab. It's hidden under something.
Okay.
It should be there now.
There you go. It's coming in. Okay. And I'm going to share the screen fully. Oh, now they're making us remove. Okay, I can do that. They just changed it. There you go. All right, zoom in and start telling us about this series and what you're planning. And I'll close my blinds, but I'm listening.
All right. So I've been working on a very long research project on one branch of my family. And it's been something that I'm working on, a really formal research project that I'm looking to have published in our local historical society's annual volume. And it's been something that I've been working on for the last 5 years, and I could work on it for another 5 years. It's a really long-term project that I've been kind of really clinically working on. And if anybody's familiar with working on colonial American families, really not everything is as it seems, and it takes really a lot of research and patience to get answers that you're comfortable, putting your name behind. So I wanted to start to put out a bit of the story that I'm working on Substack as blog post, kind of formatted almost like you would read in a magazine, trying to be as engaging as possible for people who aren't reading family history documents all the time. For me, when I'm reading a family history document as a genealogist, it's really interesting because I understand kind of the context and the details of family history. But for people who are more kind of casual dabblers in history and family history, I try and make it as approachable as possible. So I just released the first part of my series, the first third, and I published it on my Substack page, which is genealogyassistant.substack.com. If you just search genealogy assistant on Substack, I'm sure it will come up pretty quickly.
We shared the link.
And I just wanted to share the story kind of now more than ever, as it's the story of American Quakers who came to Canada and were really influential in the Confederation of Canada, so Canada becoming a free and independent country. And to me, I think it's kind of more important now than ever, because Canada and the United States, their relationship is in the news, for better or for worse. That's for somebody 200 years from now to analyze, as I'm analyzing these events. But I just wanted to put this story out in a bit of a more approachable format now, because I think it's a really interesting story that people in Canada and the United States could both enjoy. Well,
I noticed too that Barbara is here. Hi, Barbara. She just read it. Bravo. I've got it on my screen because I want to talk about structure. This is a very readable article. I want to talk about the use of English. We had an interesting discussion in the green room. And I want to talk about subscribing. So right now, I'm logged in as Dear Myrtle Archive, as opposed to Dear Myrtle. Dear Myrtle Archive is what I set up for my YouTube channel when YouTube went bonkers on the use of my other email address. First of all, that's you. I love that. Interesting. You can tell that he's part of the younger set because he's using the background as dark. But as long as that lettering is white, that's fine to have that difference in color. If the lettering was gray, it would be harder for people like me with trifocals. Well, I've had surgery since then, but the older we get, the less we're able to distinguish, and we like that stark difference of black on white or white on black. I started reading this. I love the plethora of photos, and I also like the way that you cited this. So let me zoom in so we can get through to it. There we go. So you can see this better. A bust of William Lyon Mackenzie at the Ontario Legislative Building, Queen's Park, Toronto. And then, so Walter Allward made this in 1940. There's
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, and that's an interesting citation as opposed to the academic citations of that Elizabeth Shown Mills and Dr. Jones would have us use, and I'm only using US citation samples. There's certainly some good ones coming out of England. This is user-friendly, but as I began to read it, read your use of the English language, first of all, I want to compliment you, but this is what happened, guys. In the green room, I asked Dan, did you use AI in this article? And let's play that through. Let's do that again. Dan, did you use any AI when you were composing this post? There you are again.
So I don't use AI to write my text, but I use AI as as an editor that I will interrogate. So I will write out the entire post and then go sentence by sentence. And I have a big interest in writing sentences as prose. So my background is I'm a developer. So I look at English kind of like syntax as a developer would. And I look at sentences as things that are very structured. And I try and build sentences that can stand on their own, that have a rhythm, that on their own, a sentence that can have its own cadence to it. And then I'll assemble those sentences into a paragraph that continues the cadence throughout it, that tells kind of a broader picture of the sentences strung together. So I have a really kind of clinical developer style approach to my writing.
Not exactly a developer. I mean, you're plugging in component A, B, C, and deciding which components to put in a sentence. But most coders do not write in prose and cannot even describe their program very well, as in giving us end users directions. I will say this, we had a conversation that I thought AI wrote this. Then I thought, no, this is Dan. I know you well enough now, and I've always been suspicious of you. I don't know why, and you're such a good sport. I think that Canadians use English language better than the typical American.
We had a bit more time with the British here in Canada, so maybe that influenced us a little bit more. We got a little bit more of the traditional English experience. But to me, it's I look at sentences almost as things that are modular, and for me, I just I'm always trying to condense and refine my sentences down to conveying exactly what I want to convey and conveying the picture that I have in my head. For every sentence, I have a picture in my head of what that sentence is saying, like a physical picture that I could paint.
And you're literally using words to paint the picture.
And I'll bounce that back and forth with AI. How can I really, really refine what I'm trying to say?
Okay. So let me give you some feedback. First of all, let's see. Montalee says she has Quakers who came to Canada after the Rev War. They went to Digby. And Betty Lou said her family were loyalists, which is what I thought happened with you. But then they went to the Cornwall area. Yep. Karen is saying it's AI as an editor is fantastic. And there was a great class at Roots Tech. So if you get that information on the link, that would be helpful. That comes across in your videos as well, that you explain your add-ons and you you are an exceptional coder. We have to tell you that because most of them, I mean, and I am saying a stereotypical coder is a coder geek and not thinking in prosaic sentiments as you do. And so you're a hybrid. Well, we already knew you were an exceptional person. That's for darn sure. And then Marcia's saying her loyalist line went to New Brunswick. So for those who haven't heard about your Quaker coming from the US into Canada, explain whether or not they were loyalists and why they moved.
Yeah, so I have kind of both sides of the fence. I have people who were participated in the American Revolution, and I also have ancestors who were United Empire loyalists, people who were devastated by the American Revolution, really, and came to Canada with nothing. So it's an interesting kind of contrast to be able to understand both sides. In this post, these ancestors of mine were Quakers. They came from the Susquehanna Valley in Pennsylvania. They were descendants of the Hughes family, which, if you've researched Quakers in Pennsylvania, they're one of the most notable families coming from Wales. And they were
that means
lured.
We're cousins. We're shirt-tail cousins. We really literally are.
Yeah.
And our ancestors rubbed shoulders together because of being descendants of Ap Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we weren't going to have patronymic since I couldn't find Scandinavian. Then I found Welsh. Oy vey. Go ahead.
So they were American Quakers who settled in Pennsylvania, and after the period of the American Revolution, they were called to Canada by a man by the name of Timothy Rogers. He was an American Quaker who made a deal with the British Crown to settle 40 American Quaker families who would build the community, which is now Newmarket here in Ontario. Which is still one of the province's most notable cities. And so he helped these American Quaker families settle in Canada. And they had some good times for a while, but they eventually kind of ran into a ceiling, they thought, in the amount of freedoms and the amount of success they were able to have here in Canada. And they took some inspiration from the events that they had witnessed firsthand in the United States. And they did their best to help Canada find its way to freedom.
I love it. I love it. All right, I'm going to share my screen in a second here. They just changed the ability for me to switch from one to another. And now it's a two-part thing I have to go through. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little just to show you what I want in the way of this post. We'll go to well, I love that picture. Tell me about this printing press.
So one of the prominent figures in this story is a gentleman by the name of William Lyon Mackenzie, and he was a Scotsman who came to Canada, and he was a newspaper publisher. He published newspapers that were particularly used in the reform movement of which this story describes, and Mackenzie, he was a really interesting fellow. He not to spoil the story, but he ended up having to go to the United States for a long period of time, and he was in exile of Canada. And he eventually came back to Canada, and he was established himself in Toronto. And this is a museum at his home. And this is one of his actual printing presses in the museum. And I was able to print on newspaper using that original printing press that he would have used to print the papers that I've been reading for the last 5 years. So it
this
kind
is
of came full
movable.
circle in the picture.
Yeah, this is movable type setting.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you can just see by your left hand, I think that's your left hand, the press that would come. I mean, you've already lifted the paper off the surface, but if you were to print this again, you'd put paper there and then move an arm and cause that metal plate press down, and then it's quite a process.
It essentially kind of sandwiches it. Yeah. It's really interesting. I didn't realize before going to this museum really how they printed papers of that time. It was quite interesting.
Pretty cool. Okay, so I said I was going to zoom out so you could look at this. Literally, as much as we talked about Dan's use of the English language, it's the photos that tell the story and draw interest. And here's a little excerpt from a newspaper. I think it's a newspaper.
It is, yeah.
And so this would attract the non-genealogist. That looks intriguing. Maybe they'll read what's in the caption. Maybe they'll read even more and find out about the 8,000 acres, etc. Then I was curious. I started thinking more and more about how a newbie would look at this, and they'd want to know, why have you drawn that red line on a map? And that was employment to get things that came in through, I once called it the St. Lawrence Freeway. But that's how goods came in through the Great Lakes, but they needed to do a little portage and get to this river so they could distribute elsewhere. Look at the majority of the photos compared to the text. So my granddaughter, when she was learning to read, she liked illustrated books. When we could get her to, she was interested in Wind in the Willows and things like that were mostly text and occasional graphics. If we would read them to her and tell her, because she was too little to read all the big words. But the average person is intrigued by, what in the heck, this looks like a bloody mess here. So they're curious, they're rendered curious by your use of these photos. And this is interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying to my wife this morning, I really put as much effort into choosing the photos as I did with preparing the text. And she said, well, didn't you have all the photos already? And I said, well, yeah, but I got to choose the right ones.
Yes.
So for me, the photos, I think, are a really important aspect of telling the story, because it's a visual representation of the text that I'm describing. So choosing photos that I feel really represent the tone of the story. And I was pretty, I put some forethought into it, in that it both starts and ends with photographs of the same person in different tones. It shows a Quaker meeting house in Pennsylvania, and it shows a Quaker meeting house in Canada. It shows a newspaper clipping and a newspaper press. So I try and link the photos together in a way as well.
Let's see, Melinda says it's neat that you were able to use that press. That is pretty exciting. And Barbara says, hey, Dan, I love your description of magazine style as your target. Right. We're drawn to the story with the photos. And that is what builds the curiosity. All right. One of the reasons I wanted to have you to spotlight this in such detail is I always encourage people, when they write a blog post, whether it's on Substack or their, whatever, they need to have at least one photo, and it needs to be toward the top. I've noticed that even on Substack, if there's too much text here, 3 or 4 paragraphs of text, and then there's that relevant photo, what is captured automatically by Substack is the text as a grayed out something in the background. And it's not, it needs to be above the fold, as we would say in newspaper language. That graphic needs to be there and catchy like that. The other reason I wanted to use your blog post was to talk about subscribing. Now, there is a subscribe button at the top, which goes away as I'm scrolling down through your post. And you can add buttons, folks, to encourage people to comment or to subscribe. Here's one. Here's where I can actually subscribe. Here's where the comments show up. I can like it, which is a heart in the Substack world. But let me zoom in again. And I'm going to use this other account of mine to subscribe. This is a good way to tell the story. I can tell that you manually added this subscribe button because you modified this text to say, to get notified when part 2 is released, subscribe. That's a good call to action. Some of the call to action that old Myrt does is not necessarily to subscribe. I want people to subscribe to my publication, but also I want to invite them to comment, because reading and getting involved in something because the pictures pull you in is one level of audience participation. When you give a call to action like adding a comment button, or in this case, a subscribe button, that's another level of participation, a higher level. This is a more committed one when I decide to subscribe. I also am doing this because new people who are wondering about Substack want to know about subscribing. Now, I'm on a Windows 11 computer. I'm using the Google Chrome app. And in order to subscribe, there are some suggestions to get your recommendations. This is built into Substack. Dan has already, let me show you what it is here. There's another publication that Dan recommends, and that is Emma's Substack. And
I think I recommend 2. One is you, Myrt, but I think it may not recommend you to yourself.
Maybe not. Yeah. These can be selected individually if there are multiple, or I could just say subscribe to all. By default, it's hidden and it looks like that. Yes, and that makes sense why I'm not showing up, because I am already subscribed. You click continue as I'm already subscribed as DearMYRTLE. And now I have the option to share this or not with my people. Let's see what it looks like when we click share. All right, here I can copy the link and share it in any social media post. I can share it on Facebook. Good luck. I can share it by email to Mr. Myrt because he really relates to email. I can put it in notes. And here under more, it's not going to tell me what more is. Okay, and I can't, let's see if I can move it. I can't move it. Anyway, that's what share the publication is about. I'm going to send it in notes. And DearMYRTLE Archive has the opportunity to come up here and make a comment. Follow Ends series on Quakers. Wow. You know what this means? I am not typing like that. That means I
think you may be losing your batteries.
Yeah, Mr. Myrt, could you please bring me, I think this is a AAA battery, but bring me both just in case. That's exactly what it is. This is not Windows. This is my wireless keyboard that's acting up. People think that's Windows, and it's not. All right. Okay, and I could also share my note. All right. All right, enough of all that. What I've hoped we've accomplished is, oh, Melinda, did you want to say something? You're up on the screen.
No,
Okay.
I don't know how I got up there.
It's okay. It's okay. So thank you for letting me use the sample of your blog post to discuss AI as a, Sherry, who's working our YouTube side today too, like Melinda, as an editor or a writing coach. If you had given the facts, like 5 facts, and asked AI to compose something, and then you copied that whole entire thing and made a blog post, it would, ethics would require that you mention it was ChatGPT or whatever that created this post. And that leads me to bringing up our Jill. Is she still here? There she is. Jill, going to bring you up off the wings. And let's switch gears slightly now and talk about the role that AI can have legitimately in academic writing.
So there's like levels of it. And so I think it's important for people to realize that it's actually quite accessible for newbies to access, because a lot of the significant tools that you would want to use are free. So one of the first things that I tried was, and recently, so I got a document, I'm setting up an estate, and I got a 55-page legal document. Well, one of ChatGPT's superpowers is summarizing a document. And so, and I do subscribe to Chat. I'll put that out up front. And so I put this 55-page document to it, and I said, okay, summarize this for me. Okay, now take the approach of being the beneficiary, and what questions would you ask? And it gave me 5 or 6 questions. And okay, now take the approach of being a trustee. What would be 5 or 6 questions that you would ask? And then I did the same thing for my husband and I, because we're setting it up for someone else to be the trustee. So from our perspective as being the grantors in this, what are 5 or 6 questions? And even my husband, the professional skeptic, said, these are really good questions, and they did a really good job of summarizing. And I think it did too. So if you take that then to a deed and ask it to, review the deed and summarize the deed. And I know that now Family Search has got that option over there on full text search. But this time you could take it from Family Search and put it over there and see if you get the same thing. And so there's some kind of combinations. One thing I have found, though, is that for writing, that ChatGPT probably isn't the best writer. In a test that I did, and Randy corroborated that, I did a single document that I had written, and then I had asked Chat, Perplexity, and for Claude to look at it and improve it improve my writing. I'm a technical writer. I don't write Dan's style of magazine writing very well at all. So I'm really impressed that you can do that. But I wanted it to be softer. I wanted it to be more magazine-like, and Claude did it best. Going away, Claude did it best. Even the free program. I don't subscribe to Claude. I don't subscribe to Perplexity, but I think somewhat we have to know what are the skills of these different platforms.
Let me bring Randy up, and I don't want to shock him, so I needed to interject and say, Randy, I'm going to bring you in from the wings because you're our resident AI guru. And so Jill has introduced the concept that there are, we know that there are different large language models that can do different tasks for us. And you're lately into photos or creating graphics, but and you're totally using totally free membership to things. I pay for Perplexity, pay for Perplexity Pro. It's hard to say that. ChatGPT pay for, and Claude I'm doing free. I used to pay for it. And I haven't taken a class since last summer with Steve and Mark at GRIP. And I'm frustrated because I want to get in another course to keep up, and I can't do it. So it's very important that, the Family Tree Maker 2024 that came out in 2020, and now we're into 2025, where there's months and months and months and years of time. This thing changes so quickly.
So fast.
So right now, Jill, you're saying that Claude, and what version are we on?
Free version of Claude.
The free Claude is best as far as you're concerned for summarizing or developing those questions?
ChatGPT does the best at summarizing, I think.
Okay.
This is just me personally.
Yeah.
I think that Perplexity does a good job of finding good sources for you.
Yes.
Not
that's
stupid
why I love
sources.
it. Yeah.
But I will tell you that ChatGPT has made a very much an improvement in their source identification. So they've been tweaking that piece. They recognize that they're not very strong in it, and they're getting better at it. But Claude does the best job of writing. So in some regards, you could take an article that you've got 5 themes that you want to talk about. You could ask ChatGPT to write 150 words on every one of those topics. You could take it over to Perplexity and ask Perplexity for sources. And then you could take it over to Claude and say, rewrite this in a magazine style. So there'd be ways to be able to use all 3 and use the benefits of all 3.
All right. Let's bring this down to the average researcher, not a writer. You're an educator. Randy's an educator. Dan is a hybrid. I'm still not sure. So no, I love you, Dan. The average person has done research. And they would like to write a bio because there's 52 ancestors. There's a couple of different initiatives out there where, we're going to write about women this, once a week, whatever it is.
Yep.
And so they have already accumulated some documents or some information that they can tabulate. And then how are they going to use this? I'm thinking, and correct me or add to it, and Randy, jump in whenever. They want help with the historical context. Wouldn't you think the average researcher would like to know more about the historical context? Like, I don't know if Dan knows about the Johnstown flood because he's a Canadian. He doesn't. That was good. Good answer there, Dan. And so if he were suddenly writing about a person that was in that river valley, he would if he didn't get historical context of the time period and what people were dealing with, he'd be not sharing with his family a practical story about the life experience of the ancestor. It would just be the facts. And he would miss a pretty big one, like they had to move because that was the push factor. The waters are rising, or it wiped out the house. Randy, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my thoughts are that I'm not average. I'm not like Woebegone, where everyone's above average. I figure I'm below average in writing, but I have a lot to say. And I was an engineer. And so just the facts, okay? Name, date, place, relationship, note, put a photo on it, put an image on, and there's a blog post, okay? And it's all facts. And that's how I've written all of my genealogical sketches, all facts, with a lot of text that's been transcribed or abstracted and put into my genealogical sketches. So, well, that is a background. Knowing that I don't know everything, I found that AI can really help me figure things out. Okay, it can give me historical background. Anything I ask it, it gives it to me. I'm not sure it's right. I got to check. It can give me insights. It can take those 5 census records that I've abstracted and say, oh, look, they lived here, here, and here, and the ages are different. And so it can interpret details and present it in text. So what I've tried to do is use AI to help me. Now, I've experimented. First of all, I'm not a guru. Okay, you call me a guru. I'm not. I'm a user. Steve and Mark are gurus, I think. And even they're a step down from the Ethan Mollocks and Zvi Burkowski, whatever his name is. Mm-hmm. I've been reading those guys just to try and keep up with this. And right now, most of us are just in this second phase where, okay, we know what it is now and we kind of know what it can do and we're trying it out. But the tools are progressing so that they're now into deep research. So ChatGPT and Google Gemini and Perplexity can do research now online and with their pre-trained information.
Okay? Their research, yeah.
And Chat with deep research lets you do one for free every day. Okay, Gemini does the same thing. So for free, you can use these things to figure out what to do. Grok by X is another one. And again, it will do deep research, but for free, you're limited. So
Randy,
yeah.
Randy, on that research, I think sometimes genealogists think it's going to go find a census record for them. And I've found that it won't necessarily do that because most of them are kind of behind a wall of some kind. And so I think when you use the word research, I think you want to make sure the audience knows that we're still talking about broad context research, not necessarily, we're talking about Johnstown flood type research, not necessarily research my ancestor XYZ who died in 1725.
Yeah, it will do that. It will do that, but not if something's been written about it. Mm-hmm. You know,
it would then find things like Randy's blog post because that's what's in his public posts. Yes, but not the actual. Well, there's references to the documents.
Sometimes there are references to the documents, but it's kind of because they're out there. So you just have to be careful if you think you're getting I tell people, don't you do your genealogical research that way, because you'll miss huge chunks of information.
Yeah.
And so I advise people instead that they ought to be, broad context is perfect. Johnstown flood, lots of stuff out there about it. French Canadians immigrating to the US or US to Canada, lots of information about that sort of thing. Broad topics are really good to be using these tools for, and better, I think, than Google. Just simply because it'll give you a snip, it'll show you what it's got, it'll talk about it a little bit. At least Perplexity will, a lot more than Google will.
Yeah, because Google is using AI in its responses and it's not great like Perplexity giving you the actual footnote
Right.
to the source.
Right.
All right, before we go too far, let me catch up with what's coming through from the community out there.
Can I add one more thing? I think that you asked a question about, what would a beginner do to use AI? And I started by just taking 5 or 6 facts about my person. And I asked Chat to write it up for me in some sort of a narrative. I didn't like it. It's not good. I mean, it won't be good. But that's something you can work from. And I think that that's the important thing, that we still have a voice that needs to be put into the document. And that voice is something that we write. And so we'll see mistakes, we'll see, things we want to change, and that's okay. Just be remembering that it's okay. It's still helping you get past that first writer's block, if you will.
Yeah, I think the critical thing, and Frank is agreeing with you about the hallucinations, and Randy said you have to check it.
Oh, yes.
You have to, because we are all knowing and all powerful. No, but we at least we attempt to have the most objective eye possible.
Now, the thing I did respond to Frank about was that ChatGPT, when it was initially set up and still is, just links words together that are commonly seen out there in the internet land, which is big. So it's a large language model. So it's just sticking words together that follow. But if you click on the reason button, there's a reason button now. It'll think. And so it'll start, instead of just putting words together, it will actually start looking for topics and start pulling that information in. So if you have an opportunity to use the reason button in ChatGPT, I recommend you do it. It takes a few seconds longer, but not substantially.
And we got Go ahead, Randy.
Ooh, oh, we're shaking.
Whoa!
You're having an earthquake?
Going, yeah. That was a good one. It may be a 6 or 7 out on the desert.
Oh my God!
Get them here, but it could be a 6 or 7. Even they've been talking about Salton Sea having shakers, little shakers, and it may be the prelude to a big one.
Wow.
And if that was a 7 out there, that did damage.
My quake feed will tell me, but
10:08.
Oh my gosh! All right, I think so. I've been thinking of the conversations I've had briefly with Mr. Myrt about AI, which he's new to that, and I think we were so conditioned with Google searches. What is it?
6.0, 3 kilometers northeast of San Diego Country Estates, California.
Ooh, that's where Diane Gould Hall lived. Doesn't now, but
where she used to live. Yeah.
Wow.
Before she moved.
Yep.
6, so that's closer than Imperial Valley.
And that's pretty big. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Except Vancouver had they had a 7 point. Well, you had a 7.71, didn't you, Myrt, just outside of the islands?
Yes, but I didn't feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Randy shook.
Yeah, I thought he was falling off his computer chair.
I didn't dive under the table, you know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gwen
All right.
Gwen mentions it in the chat, and Karen says biggest one I've ever felt. Had to hold monitors on the table. Karen's in Borrego Springs, I think, which is out in the desert and closer to Salton Sea than I want to be. And now she says that was scary. On the
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
A
day that will live in memory.
Myrt history.
That's for sure. We've documented it.
All right.
All right. So back to Mr. Myrt.
What was the question?
I was talking about how Mr. Myrt is new to AI, and he's asking me about it, and it's hard to explain all this stuff. I think this discussion that we've had is valuable. One thing that beginners can remember is that it's a conversation back and forth. The first time you send something, like Jill said, to your to ChatGPT with just the facts and asking for a narrative, that paragraph format, it can be just really boring, like the AI that we see when Ancestry does a summary. And but it's in that subsequent conversation. You can use, I haven't used the reason button, because I tend to use Perplexity 90% of the time. But I am now intrigued to start considering ChatGPT because of you. But it's still a matter of querying back and forth. Remember, Dan told us that he would say, he would have his multi-part prose, his multi-part sentence, and then ask for improvements or on that paragraph or that sentence. And then it's a back and forth honing of your writing. Yeah. I'm amazed. I'm glad you're okay, Randy. I can't take any more stress.
Yeah, me too.
Have any more stress.
Go down in style, though, you know?
Yeah.
It happened so fast that I couldn't react. I mean, it was only 5 to 8 seconds of shaking. That's what, you know, what I remember. And but things went pretty good. You know.
You didn't have any books fall off your shelf.
And there was right before I said earthquake, there was a little jolt, probably a 4 or something like that. And then the big one came, and that lasted 5 to 8 seconds. And since it stopped that soon, I knew it wasn't an 8. Okay, we had an 8 out in the desert on the Mexico side a couple of years, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it went 30 seconds here, you know, and it went 60 seconds out there, and then you get aftershocks and things. So
yeah, you're going to have a very moving day with the aftershocks.
Yeah.
Man.
So it'll be interesting to see how Ramona survives. That would have been pretty much right under Diane Gould Hall when she lived there. She was out near Country Estates. Beautiful mountain view and you know, horses, and she had a nice setup out there. Anyway, well.
And Gwen is saying it was feeling like the house hopped up and down.
Yeah. And everything in the house rattles that can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy shaking earth, Batman.
Yep.
Golly. All right. Well, dare we go look at our Google Sheet and see what's coming up? Thanks, Dan, for letting us share your blog post. Thanks for this conversation about AI and how it was particularly important to look at it from a writer's point of view and also from a genealogy newbie's point of view. They're not writing for publication. They're not making they're not setting up a Substack publication or a blog yet, but they would like to tell the story in a family book or something like that, that they, an email to send to their family. And I really like that concept of little anecdotes, one at a time, as opposed to having to write the whole entire history in a big book or in the book. Because that's becomes, I'm pretty seriously into genealogy, and I don't want to do a big book. It's overwhelming. All right. So let me go look. Let's demonstrate this new thing. I want to demonstrate the full text search of maps for England, Scotland, and Wales. So I'll share my screen and zoom in, and cousin Randy actually will share the link to this post. I heard about this. There was talk about it with some friends when I was at Roots Tech. As we were, it was after Mondays with Myrt, and we were in the library. And first of all, the basis for it are the ordnance, not ordinance, but ordnance survey maps that are 6-inch to a mile. And they're doing the edition that's 1888 through 1913. And I grabbed a picture of it, a screenshot, and I especially want you to open up tabs like I'm doing
Myrt,
by
not showing.
clicking on these helpful links of conventions of signs and writings,
We're
guide
not
to
seeing anything, Pat. We're not seeing anything.
It's not sharing. Oh, great.
Yeah, now we got it.
There we go.
Thank you. All right. And let's have everybody up except for Melinda. And here's the useful links, which would be nice if I actually had hyperlinked these. I didn't realize I didn't. So in order to, and there's also how-to information. All of these links I suggest you have open on other tabs. So when you're in the middle of an actual map and you come across an abbreviation, you know what the heck you're talking about. All right, so accept cookies, and we're going to actually view a map. Here we go. This is the help. Okay. It took 1,000 volunteers to do this. And what we have here, do I need to zoom in a little more? Let me get our pictures off. In this area is the search dialog box. It can be moved around or exited once you're on a page and want to zoom in on something. So we can then do a search. And I want to search for Bisham, B-I-S-H-A-M. And there are 9 places named Bisham. All right. And it's going to give me little dots. And when do you see how I searched on the left side of the screen? It only took a few seconds and it came up with the 8 places named Bisham. Okay. And as I roll my mouse over these, do you see how the red dot changes on the map? Okay, so let's try this one because it happens to be here, the one that I'm talking about. So I have an ancestor who married, And remember, this is 1888 through 1913. And hers was in, her time period of living was in the late 1700s. So we're talking 100 years prior to the amount of buildings, etc., that show up in this picture of the map, because this map was from the survey that was done in that time period. Apparently it's 1900. And when I zoom in and out, I'm just using the roller on my mouse. And one of the things that was a challenge for me was to find this place on a map, period. And I was finding names, the same surname, on this side of a mountain range. But by this time period, 1900 or 1880, when did Prince Albert start doing the trains? There was, in the time period that my ancestor lived in Bisham, he wasn't going over the mountain on thoroughfares, on major highways, or taking the train to get around. So when he's looking for a wife, he's, our rule that a person typically would travel 5 to 7 miles in around his place of abode to find a mate, to find someone to court, so that he could, at the end of a work day or on a Sunday afternoon, he could go visit her church and come back to be ready for work the next day. So even in 1900, as we zoom in, you'll see there are tiny little roads going through, but this is still quite mountainous. So just having the name Bisham and knowing where it is are two different things. When you see it in the context of topography, it's more likely that he's going to spend his time on this eastern side of the mountain and not traverse or try to go around. That's just how easy it is. Now, let's zoom in a little and look at some of the places here. Oh, there's Maidenhead. That's another ancestral place. Wonder how many Maidenheads there are. Because, in fact, the wife was from Maidenhead, which is very close to Bisham. That makes sense. All right. I'm trying to see if there's anything here in the way of a cemetery. I don't know what the Great Haze is. Here's the Manor Hall here. Let's zoom in here a little more. There's CH for church. Oh, we changed maps. There's a school. So we'd have to find out what BM and FP stand for. I honestly don't know. And that's why I want you to have your helpful hints already opened up as other tabs so that you can quickly go back and forth and find out. All right, how many of you have tried to use a map like this? This full text map search was accomplished with 1,000 volunteers who went and zoomed in. This is as far in as I can zoom. Oh no, I can still go closer. To see what all of these little places were called. The smithy, well, I guess that's self-explanatory. St. Lawrence Church, the church farm is off to the distance, the old chalk pit. All of these items were very carefully enumerated. So Maria is sending the AI. Talk to me about this, Randy. You put the link up.
Maria put something in the chat. There was an AI book at RootsTech, and so it was Research Like a Pro with AI. It's a workbook. It's digital only. It's by the Family Lockett ladies, Diana Elder and Nicole Dyer.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, I see that. Yeah, Dan put up the abbreviations page for me. So here's the abbreviation. And what was the abbreviation? B? I can't even remember now. Anyway.
It was BM, I believe, Myrt. And I believe it means benchmark.
Benchmark. And what that means, I don't know. But at least we now know what that stands for. Okay, we have an 8-minute warning already. Okay. Couple more things to talk about.
And now it's silent.
It seems like Myrt got offline.
Yeah. Earthquake, maybe. Who knows? Well, no.
What I wanted to add to that.
I'm back. I closed the window myself. It wasn't the internet.
Myrt, I wanted to add to it that it's very strange for me as someone that works on a daily basis with maps that it changed the map the further you zoom in. That's really strange for me. So
okay.
I would like to choose what map I want to see. So I want to choose it myself and not simply scroll in and suddenly it changed the map.
Okay, like maybe I was, I wonder if it was really changing the map or the color changed just as a factor of digital imaging.
Could be.
They're all ordinate, it's so hard to say ordnance survey maps.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have to test again and see. But these are official maps from the government. So at least we're in the right book, in the right area. Now let me be sure the giveaway tool is working. Okay. All right, Frank, let's share your screen and do your thing. And then we're going to talk about MyRT, and we can go over a few minutes to get the rest of the links shared. Okay. So what Frank is sharing with us is Decipher Inc. Now, we brought this up a couple of weeks ago. This is an app on your iPhone.
On my Android phone.
Oh, this is on Android. Okay. Go ahead. Tell us how it works.
It doesn't matter anymore because now it's out for both Android and iOS. And it's simply a language learning tool for handwriting. In this instance, for American Cursive, which is for free for everyone that simply registers. And just to show it to you, why does it doesn't pick some up? Let's see. I have to restart it again. Give me a second.
Okay. So we do a lot of game playing. I play Words with Friends, which has improved my vocabulary and my spelling. What we're talking about here is a way to learn.
There we go.
There we are. This is a way to learn how to read script.
Yes.
This is a gamification of that challenge to educate people on American Cursive. I learned on the Palmer method. I don't know what you learned on. I don't think you learned on the Palmer method. And this is the module for American Cursive. But there are other modules, are there not, Frank?
There are. At the moment, they have started with the second language, which is the German Cursive one. And you can book the course for, let me see. For $99 a month, or down to 75 amount when you book it for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
it's auto renewable, so better know how long you want to study and when to cancel.
yeah, put a reminder in your online calendar. That's what I have to do. I can't remember.
As you can see, I didn't have booked it yet because they put out the course to book for Germany just last week, as I remembered them that it's not working properly.
Okay, so show us what it looks like in the English American Cursive.
Yeah, sure.
Well, yes.
The first lesson obviously is a simple introduction. Which simply tells you about Cursive at its all, description, videography, and so on. It goes into detail, but not as much as you would expect from a learning tool per se.
Mm-hmm.
Simply tells you what you need to know to understand it. But what it really shines is the practice, because when you go, for example, for the given names, this is the simple as it gets. They have scanned, I think, hundreds and hundreds of documents to extract the writing.
Mm-hmm.
And you simply can go on and on and on again to simply learn to read.
And when they are dealing with, this is for genealogists.
Yes.
And so their samples are going to be names or categories of information that you might
Exactly.
see in a christening record in Germany, or, well, if they had a Polish component, etc. See, Germany is pretty important to me.
For the American version, they simply focus on names because obviously they expect you to speak English when the whole program is in English.
Okay.
But I have seen some excerpts from the German ones where they also help you to translate in the start, in the beginning. They really tell you what words means what, so you also learn the language by itself.
Yeah, this is
just the words that you need as a genealogist.
okay. Yeah, not bagels and cream cheese or where's the bathroom lettering, but christening. What is, can we read abbreviations for geborgen, birth or death or marriage or whatever it is.
Exactly.
But of course, this English one is free to get us used to the program itself, how the flip cards work, how to use the program itself. Yeah, and a lot of people would say that's WURD or WURCL. I mean, seriously.
That's Howard.
Yep, exactly. All right. Thank you.
And
For this
really,
brief moment of explaining this program to us, you
it's
spent a lot of time figuring out how to get it so you could share your screen, and I appreciate that work.
and it really goes in the normal learning stage, really letter by letter.
Yeah.
And also the different types of letter. So just because you know how to read one C in current doesn't mean that it's always written the same way.
I know. People are individuals. That's true. Okay. Thanks to Ellen for being my timekeeper today. Randy, can you get ready? Can you pull up the link for James Tanner's post, please? Give it to me. Because before we go, I have a few things to do. I know I need to do a book club, StreamYard, screen share. All right, let me get there. Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
All right, just a moment. All right, so hopefully we've got 9 entries for those of you that are attending. If you would like this book, Mastering Genealogical Documentation, which we're going to start with next week, please type in your entry using that hashtag Myrt Book Club. Also, the other thing I'd like to do is, while we're waiting, I'm going to mention a post that James Tanner made. I am always referring you all to using the Family Search Research Wiki for the best possible advice on how to do research in a particular area or on a particular ethnic group or record group like Quakers, etc. Well, what James has noted is that the last time they allowed updating was July 2024. And he gives the example of that 4 counties in England when there are actually 48 counties as of here in 2025. So the update hasn't been made, and these counties are missing from the list. And his thinking is that, and thank you for sharing the link, that they're working on a different option, an improvement on the research wiki. So keep that in mind, folks, that things could have changed. All right, let's see. Need a few more entries. I only have 9. Maybe most of you have this book. Okay, the other thing I'd like to do is share a post. Please, giving you time to type that in. I want to talk to you about early Pennsylvania research. Now, Dan mentioned the Susquehanna Valley. And the challenge in Pennsylvania research is that the early colonial records were beginning to be lost. And in the early 1800s, the Secretary of State began to recognize that these papers were getting mixed up. They were just loose papers in folios or folder boxes kind of things. So they got transcribed into 138 bound volumes. And that's what I'm mentioning here in my blog post. Let me pull it up. Okay, add to this stage. There we are. Now, these books are tiny little books, but they're very thick, and only a few libraries have them. Now, when I say Pennsylvania Archives books, the published Pennsylvania archives is different from the building known as the Pennsylvania State Archives. It's a real tricky thing. They have a thing like this for New Jersey too. But fortunately, the pages from the published Pennsylvania archives books have been digitized. They appear on a number of websites, and I've listed them here. And I'm recommending that you get this little $5 book by Christine Crawford Oppenheimer, because these books are not, you'd think the colonial records, they're in volume 16. They're not in volume 1. You would think that there's 16 volumes. It's in a section, but the minutes of the military records for the Revolution are in the 6th series, which includes 15 volumes. So if you wanted the Revolutionary War military rolls that you think should belong to the colonial, are absolutely not in that Colonial Records initial 16 volume series. So she says you need to start with this, you might be starting with the 7th series first. It's a every name index to the 6th series. I mean, honestly, without this little book, in fact, I lost mine and had to get it again. You're not going to understand the best way to use these. Now, these are the dates that are theoretically covered in each of the series. Now, this is an example, and I recommend that you use HathiTrust, partly because it's very good at giving you a citation sample right here. I searched for my ancestor, Conrad Weiser, and got several matches. When I went to page 41, I did find this entry, and I've taken the footnote and superimposed it here. If this was your first and only knowledge of when Conrad Weiser passed away, and you knew that he, was the, that it says that he died suddenly in the summer. So we don't know if this is 1761, where this was, what the date of this is. You have to do a little bit more research. And I do know this is my guy. This is not the first notice of his having passed away, because I'm a very active member of the Weiser Family Association. The Wikipedia article is pretty darn good because it explains and gives you links to different series, but these are at google.com. And again, I recommend the HathiTrust because it's going to help you. It's so confusing. Is this series 1, book 2? Is this series 5? Book 7, it's just really confusing to try to do a citation. All right. How's our time? I think we ought to call it up and actually do our draw. Oh, good. We have 12 of you who have typed in Myrt's Book Club accurately, and we'll see who wins the book, Mastering Genealogical Documentation. Yay, Karen, you won. So Karen, will you please send an email to DearMYRTLE@gmail.com. I just put it in the chat. And tell me if you would like the Kindle version or the paperback version. If you live outside of the United States, I will probably have to send you money via Venmo, because you may not I can't send it from Amazon US to a foreign country. I've learned that painfully. Hillary will tell you. Anything else before we go, guys? Gosh, there's so many more things to talk about. It's all good. Thank you. Thank you. So our next meeting will be April 28th. Oh, I know there's one thing I have to give you a link for, and that is the new Panelist application. We are starting this book club study of chapters 1, etc. Mastering genealogical documentation starts on the 28th. Here is the link to the new Panelist application. So far I have 2 now that are returning, and we'll see. I really would like to have at least 3 panelists. Otherwise, I'm going to have to do homework. We need varying points of view, and you know how opinionated old Myrt can get. Yeah, we're thinking of you guys. Nothing left to say, but I'm Dear Myrtle, your not so retired friend in genealogy. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.